The night market was alive with noise, but she heard only the sound of her child's weak breathing. The alien mother held her little boy tightly, his ribs showing under his thin skin, his eyes half closed. Every step she took toward the slave. Stalls felt like a knife cutting her soul, but there was no other choice left. Her child was dying of hunger, and she had nothing left to sell, except herself. The marketplace lights burned red against the dark sky, casting long shadows over. The cages, merchants shouted prices, buyers laughed, and chains clinked against stone. The alien mother lowered her head, covering her face with the torn hood of her cloak. Her child whimpered, and she kissed his forehead, whispering, "It's going to be all right. Mama will make it all right." Though she did not believe it, the slave merchant spotted her. His eyes narrowed, then widened with cruel delight. "Well, well, what do we have here?" "A mother and her brat," he called. The crowd turned, curious. The mother bowed low and whispered, I offer myself, sir. Please just give food for my child. I will obey." Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. She had made her choice. The merchant laughed loudly, waving his hand toward the crowd. "You hear that? She sells herself for scraps, even lower than the rats that crawl these alleys." Some in the crowd chuckled, others shook their heads. To them, she was nothing. The child tried to cling to her tighter, whispering, "Mama, don't." But his small voice broke into coughs. She hugged him, her heart shattering, she thought. Better me than him. If I must lose everything, let it be for his life. The merchant grabbed her arm roughly and pulled her toward the stage. He shoved her to her knees and raised her chin so the crowd could see her pale face and hollow eyes. "This one is thin, weak and dirty, but she's desperate," the merchant announced. "She will cook, clean, crawl on her knees, do anything you ask, and all she wants is a bit of food for her brat. Who will take her?" For a moment, silence stretched across the market. Most turned away, uninterested. Who wanted a woman with a child? Slaves were meant for work or pleasure, not for dragging around sickly children. The mother felt her stomach twist, shame burning inside her chest. Would no one even want her for free? The merchant grew angry, shouting louder. "Come on. Worthless or not, she can serve. Who will pay?" The mother's hands shook, her child crying softly against her chest. Tears blurred her vision, and she whispered, "Please, please, someone, take me. Save my child." Then from the edge of the crowd a voice spoke, calm, firm, and unexpected. "I will take her." Heads turned, murmurs rose, and the merchant blinked in surprise. The voice belonged to a man, taller than the rest. Standing in a worn coat, a human. Humans were rare in these parts, and most were feared for their strength and strange ways. Yet this one stepped forward slowly, his eyes not on the mother's body, but on the boy clutched in her arms. The merchant recovered quickly, smirking. "Ah, a human buyer. Finally some coin worth taking. Do you want the brat too? I can throw him in for nothing." Laughter rolled through the market, but the human did not laugh. He only said, "Both." His voice flat, leaving no room for argument. The mother raised her head. Her breath caught in her throat. A human buying her? She expected cruel chains, hard labor, or worse, but his eyes met hers, calm, steady, unreadable. Something inside her froze. He wasn't looking at her like the others had, not with hunger, not with mockery, but with something strange, almost pity. The merchant clapped his hands. "Sold! To the human!" He shoved her forward roughly, nearly making her drop her child. The human reached out, steadying her before she could fall. His hand was rough, strong, but gentle. She flinched, expecting pain, but none came. The merchant pocketed his coins with a grin. "Take them and go. But don't come crying back when she's useless," he said. The crowd laughed again, voices fading as the human turned and led her away. Step by step she followed, holding her child tightly, her heart pounding. Every thought screamed at her. What have I done? Who is this man? What will he do to me? But beneath the fear, one spark remained. Her son was still in her arms, still breathing. For now, that was enough. As they left the noise of the market behind, the mother whispered shakily, Why did you buy us? The human did not answer at first. He glanced at her child, then at her, and simply said, Because no one else would. And with those words, the night grew silent, heavy with questions. The mother lowered her head again, trembling. She did not yet know if this was the beginning of safety, or another kind of prison, but for the first time a fragile thread of hope pulled against her fear. She walked beside the human, carrying her child, and wondered what fate awaited them now. The road from the market was long and silent. The alien mother walked slowly, clutching her child close to her chest. The human did not speak much, only leading the way with steady steps. She kept waiting for harsh words, for commands, for the strike of a hand. But none came. Her child whimpered weakly. His lips cracked. From thirst, she stopped once, whispering, Please, he needs water. The human paused, opened the small canteen at his belt, and handed it to her. Her hands shook as she lifted it to her son's mouth. The boy drank greedily, drops spilling down his chin. The mother's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, she whispered. But the human had already turned away, continuing down the path. Soon they reached a small wooden cabin on the edge of a forest. It was quiet, away from the noisy market and cruel eyes. The mother froze at the doorway, her heart racing. Was this where he would chain her, lock her away? Her child hid his face in her chest, trembling. The human pushed the door open and gestured inside. Go in, he said simply. She obeyed, stepping into the cabin. The place was simple, wooden walls, a stone hearth with ashes from an old fire, a table with 2 chairs. It looked like a home, not a prison. The mother felt even more confused. The human set down a small pack, pulling out bread, dried meat, and fruit. He placed them on the table without a word. The smell of food hit her nose, sharp and overwhelming. Her child stirred, his weak eyes locking onto the bread. The mother's heart ached. She wanted to give him everything, but she hesitated, afraid it might be a trick. The human noticed her fear. He broke the bread in half, handed the larger piece to the boy. Eat, he said gently. The child blinked, then reached out with shaky fingers. When the bread touched his tongue, he let out a small sound, half sob, half laughter. The mother pressed a hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her son was eating. Truly eating, she whispered. I don't understand. Why feed him first? I belong to you now, don't I? The human looked at her, his expression calm but firm. I didn't buy a servant, he said. I bought a mother and her child. His words felt heavy, strange, impossible. The mother stared at him, unsure if she had heard correctly. You don't want me to serve you? She asked carefully. The human shook his head. You've suffered enough. Eat. Rest. The mother lowered her gaze, ashamed. Her life had taught her only one truth. Nothing came free. If he didn't want her body for work or pleasure, then why? Surely no one was that kind. Still, she sat quietly, feeding her son pieces of fruit, watching him smile for the first time in weeks. Her chest tightened, the sight almost too much to bear. When her son finally drifted into sleep, full for once, she looked at the human again. She whispered, I can cook. I can clean. I'll be quiet. I won't cause trouble. The human studied her for a long moment. Then he said, Do what you wish, but don't think you must. Her throat tightened. This was not how masters spoke. The fire crackled in the hearth as night fell. The mother sat in the corner, rocking her child gently. Every time the human moved, she flinched, expecting anger. But he never raised his voice, never touched her roughly, never demanded anything. Instead, he placed a blanket near her, saying, It gets cold at night. Use it for the boy. Her hands froze as she took it. It was soft, warm, far more than they deserved. She pulled it around her child, her tears soaking into the fabric. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the sound of the boy's steady breathing. The mother's mind whirled with questions. Who was this human? Why show kindness to someone like her? No one in her world had ever cared for her or her child. Yet here she was, in a stranger's home, her son safe for the first time in months. But fear still clung to her, she thought. What if tomorrow he changes? What if this is only the beginning of a cruel game? Her heart trembled, caught between hope and terror. She did not dare trust fully. Not yet. As the fire dimmed, the human finally spoke again. Sleep. You're safe here. The words struck her deeper than chains ever had safe. She had almost forgotten what that word meant. The mother lay down carefully. Her son nestled against her chest, the blanket wrapped tight. Her eyes remained open for a long time, watching the human. He sat near the fire, sharpening a small blade, his face calm in the flickering light. Not once did his eyes linger on her, with hunger or cruelty. Finally, her exhaustion overcame her fear, and her eyes drifted closed as sleep claimed her. A single thought lingered in her heart. If he is lying, I will break. But if he is not, then maybe, just maybe, there is a place for us after all. Morning light entered through the cracks in the cabin walls. The alien mother opened her eyes slowly, confused by the warmth around her. Her child still slept peacefully, his small face pressed against the blanket, his breathing soft and steady. For a moment she thought it was a dream, but then she saw the human moving quietly near the hearth, adding wood to the fire. She sat up quickly, pulling her child closer, her heart racing. The human glanced at her and said only, "There's water outside. You can wash if you want." No commands, no cruel tone, just simple words. It made her feel uneasy. She whispered softly, I will cook something if you allow." He only shrugged, "If you wish," and stepped outside. The mother searched the small shelves of the cabin and found dried grains, herbs, and a small pot. Her hands worked slowly, carefully, expecting him to inspect her work, but he did not return right away. Instead, she heard the sound of chopping wood outside, the steady rhythm of an axe against logs. She stirred the pot and thought, why does he not treat me like a servant? What does he want from me? Her child woke, rubbing his eyes. "Mama, I'm hungry," he whispered. Her heart softened, and she gave him the first bowl, smiling through tears. The boy ate quickly, his cheeks full for the first time in weeks. The mother felt her chest. It had been so long since she had seen him eat like this. When the human came back inside carrying a bundle of firewood, the smell of the food filled the cabin. The mother tensed, afraid he would scold her, but he only placed the wood down and nodded toward the pot. "Smells good." She lowered her gaze and whispered, "It is not much, but you may eat first." "Master," the human frowned slightly. "Don't call me that." Her breath caught. "Then, what should I call you?" He paused, then simply said, "Call me Daniel." The name felt strange on her tongue, heavy with meaning. She had never been allowed to call a master by name before. It was dangerous, forbidden, yet this human gave his name freely, like they were equals. The day passed quietly. Her son played with a small wooden carving he found on a shelf, an old toy, perhaps from another child. The mother kept cleaning the cabin, sweeping the dust, wiping the table. She wanted to be useful, to repay this strange kindness. But Daniel never ordered her, never checked her work. He spent the day repairing the roof, chopping more wood, and setting traps in the forest. At night, when the fire warmed the room, the mother sat silently with her son in the corner. She kept her head down, her mind full of questions. She wanted to ask Daniel why he had bought them, why he fed them, why he treated them this way. But fear tied her tongue, she thought. If I ask too much, he may throw us out. If I speak too freely, he may show his true face. Her child, however, was braver. He walked up to Daniel and held out the wooden toy. "Did you make this?" Daniel looked at him with surprise, then smiled faintly. "Yes, Long time ago. The boy's eyes widened. For your child? The cabin grew quiet. Daniel's smile faded and he looked into the fire. Yes. For my daughter. The mother froze. Daniel had lost someone too. She wanted to ask more, but the sadness in his eyes silenced her. That night, when Daniel stepped outside, the mother whispered to her son, "Stay close to me, do not wander." The boy nodded, but his eyes were full of trust. He already saw Daniel as something safe, something strong. The mother's chest tightened. She feared her son would love the human more than her, and yet a small part of her wondered if that would be so bad. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. Daniel hunted and brought back food. The mother cooked and cleaned without being asked. The boy grew stronger, his cheeks less hollow, his laughter returning. Little by little, the cabin, once silent, began to feel alive. But inside the mother's heart, fear still whispered. She still flinched whenever Daniel came too close. She still bowed her head whenever she handed him something. Her past chains were invisible, but they were heavy. Every kindness made her more confused, more restless. Kindness always had a price. She just did not know what his was yet. One evening, a storm raged outside, wind howling against the wooden walls. The fire burned bright inside the cabin, casting long shadows. The mother sat with her son wrapped in the blanket, watching Daniel repair a crack in the roof. She finally spoke, her voice trembling. Why are you like this?" Daniel looked at her puzzled. Like what? She swallowed hard. Kind. To me. To him? She motioned to her child. No one has ever been kind to us without wanting something back. Her words broke in her throat, her eyes burning with unshed tears. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then he sat near the fire, his voice quiet but firm. Because someone should have been kind to you long ago, but they weren't. So I will be. The mother's hands trembled, her chest heavy with emotions she could not name. Her child leaned against her, whispering, "Mama, maybe we're safe now." Safe. The word echoed in her heart, fragile and strange, but as she looked into Daniel's calm eyes, another thought struck her, chilling her blood. If he ever changes, if this is all a lie, I will not survive it. The storm outside roared louder, but inside the cabin silence fell. The mother sat in the glow of the fire, her child asleep in her lap, and for the first time in years, she dared to hope. But fear still clung like a shadow, reminding her that safety could vanish in a single breath. The days in the cabin passed slowly, almost too peacefully. The alien mother began to move with less fear, though the weight in her heart never lifted. Her child laughed more often now, running about the small yard when the weather was kind. He looked stronger, brighter, as though the shadow of death no longer clung to him. But every smile from her son reminded her of what she had done. Sold herself, lowered her pride, surrendered everything. At night, when her boy slept soundly under the blanket Daniel had given, the mother lay awake. Her eyes followed the flicker of the firelight on the wooden walls. In her mind, the past returned again and again. The village where she was born. The faces of those who had mocked her. The day hunger crushed her spirit. She remembered their cruel voices. Sell yourself if you want your brat to live. Even the garbage pit won't take you. Your child should have been thrown away at birth. Their words still cut her, sharper than any blade. She turned, on her side clutching her son tightly. Tears slipped down her cheeks, silent and bitter. No matter how kind Daniel seemed, she could not believe such kindness would last. Kindness was fragile. It always broke when the world demanded it, and she feared the day Daniel would see her as the others did. One evening, after a long day of gathering firewood, Daniel prepared food while she sat quietly. Her son was playing with a wooden toy on the floor, his laughter filling the room. Daniel glanced at the mother, then at the boy. "You should smile more," he said simply. She froze, staring at him. "Why?" "Because your child smiles when you do," Daniel replied. The word struck her deeply, though she said nothing. Her lips trembled, but no smile came. only more fear. That night she dreamed of chains, of the market, of rough hands pulling her child away. She woke in a cold sweat, clutching him tightly. Daniel was already awake, sharpening his blade by the fire. His calm face looked almost dangerous in the glow. She flinched when his eyes met hers. "Bad dreams?" he asked quietly. She did not answer, afraid to reveal too much. He looked at her for a long moment, then said softly, "Dreams are only shadows. They can't hurt you now." But she wasn't sure if she believed him. The next day, her doubts returned in a crueler form. While Daniel was outside working, the mother carried water from the well behind the cabin. As she walked back, she heard voices in the distance, rough, mocking voices. Two alien men stood at the edge of the clearing, watching her with sneers. "Well, well, the worthless girl. Lives," one of them said. The other laughed. "So it's true, the human keeps trash in his home. Does he not know what she is?" Her hands shook, the water spilling onto the ground. She tried to walk faster, but the men stepped closer. "Does he use you at night, girl? Or does he keep you only for pity?" One taunted. Her chest tightened with shame and rage. But she kept silent, rushing back inside. When Daniel returned later, he noticed her pale face, her trembling hands. "What happened?" he asked, his voice firm. "Nothing," she whispered, hiding her eyes. But her son spoke up, his small voice angry. "Bad men laughed at Mama." Daniel's jaw tightened, his expression darkening. "Who?" he asked. She tried to stop him. "Please, don't. If they see you protect me, they'll come back worse." But Daniel shook his head. "No one mocks my home." That night, she could not sleep. She sat by the window, staring into the darkness. Every rustle in the trees made her heart race. Her son slept peacefully, unaware of the fear curling through her body. Daniel sat at the table, cleaning his rifle, his expression unreadable. She whispered at last, "Why do you risk yourself for me? You don't know me. You don't know what I've done?" Daniel looked up, his gaze steady. "I know enough. I know you're a mother who would give everything for her child. That's all I need to know." Her throat closed, tears stinging her eyes. She turned, away, unable to answer. The shadows of the past had not left her. Every cruel word from her old life still haunted her. But now, new shadows crept closer. Those men, their whispers, their threats. She feared not only for herself, but for her son, and even for the human who had chosen to protect them. For the first time, she realized something terrifying. If Daniel fell because of her, she would never forgive herself. As the wind howled outside the cabin and the fire burned low, the mother sat silently in the dark, her heart torn between gratitude and fear. The shadows of her past still chained her, and now shadows of the present were gathering too. She knew something was coming, something that would test whether Daniel's kindness was real. And in her heart she whispered a desperate prayer. "Please, let this fragile peace last just a little longer." The morning after the whispers in the Weiss forest, the mother moved carefully around the cabin. Her child played on the floor, stacking small pieces of wood like towers, but her eyes kept darting to the door, to the window, to the shadows outside. Fear pressed on her chest, heavy and unshakable. Daniel noticed, though he said nothing at first. He sat at the table, repairing a leather strap for his pack, his hands steady and calm. But when he looked up, his gaze was sharp. "You're still afraid," he said quietly. She lowered her head. "They will come back. They always come back." Daniel set the strap down, his jaw tightening. "Then I'll be ready," he answered simply. That evening, as the sun dipped low, the sound of footsteps echoed from the edge of the forest. The mother froze, clutching her son close. 3 alien men appeared, their faces twisted with cruel smiles. The same ones who had mocked her before, now bolder. "Well, human," one sneered, "we hear you keep broken things in your home. Let us help you throw them out." The mother's stomach turned. shame burning in her veins. She wanted to vanish, to disappear before Daniel saw the truth of her worthlessness. But Daniel stood slowly, his tall frame casting a long shadow in the fading light. His voice was calm but cold. "Leave." The men laughed. "Or what? You'll fight us for her? For trash?" One of them spat on the ground, pointing at the mother. "She begged for scraps in our village. She sold herself for food. She is nothing. And you," he sneered, "you're a fool for wasting your strength on her." The mother's heart stopped, tears burning her eyes. This was it, she thought. Now Daniel would see. Now he would know the truth. He would turn away, abandon her like everyone else had. But instead, Daniel stepped forward, his voice firm, steady, unshakable. "She is not trash," he said. "She is under my protection." The men blinked, startled by his words, then burst into harsh laughter. "Protection? From you alone? Do you think you can stand against us for a worthless mother and her brat?" Daniel's eyes narrowed, his hand resting calmly on the handle of his blade. "I don't think," he said quietly. "I know." The tension snapped like a bowstring. One of the men lunged forward, but Daniel moved faster. His fist struck the man across the jaw, sending him sprawling into the dirt. The other two rushed him together, but Daniel fought with calm precision, a strike to the stomach, a knee to the chest, a swift shove that sent one stumbling back. The third swung wildly, but Daniel caught his arm and twisted, forcing him to the ground. The mother stood frozen in the doorway, her son clinging to her leg, wide-eyed. She could hardly breathe, hardly believe what she saw. Daniel stood tall, unflinching against men who had always towered over her. He fought not for himself, but for her, for them. The men scrambled back to their feet, bruised and shaken. "You'll regret this, human." One shouted, clutching his side, "This isn't over." Another hissed, his eyes burning with hate. But none of them dared stay longer. They turned and disappeared into the shadows of the forest, their threats echoing behind them. Silence fell, heavy over the clearing, broken only by the crackle of the fire inside the cabin. Daniel stood still for a moment, breathing steady, before turning back to the door. The mother's legs shook as he approached, her eyes wide, her heart pounding. You fought for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel looked at her, his expression calm but firm. "No one mocks my home," he said simply. Tears spilled down her cheeks, unstoppable. She dropped to her knees, clutching her child tightly, her shoulders shaking. For years, no one had defended her. No one had raised a voice against those who scorned her. And now, this human, this stranger, had risked his life to protect her honor. Her son pressed his face into her shoulder, whispering, "Mama, he saved us." Daniel stepped closer, kneeling slightly so his gaze met hers. "You don't belong to them anymore," he said firmly. "They don't decide your worth. Not now. Not ever again." The words pierced her heart like fire, burning away the lies she had been told. But the fear did not vanish. It grew sharper. If Daniel could fight for her, then Daniel could bleed for her. And if he bled, if he fell, it would be her fault. That night, as the cabin grew quiet again, the mother sat awake by the fire. Her child slept peacefully, safe in the warmth of the blanket, but her own eyes stared into the flames, her thoughts twisting like shadows. Daniel had stood against them once, but the men had promised to return, and when they did, would Daniel be enough to protect them? Would his kindness hold, even when the world pushed harder? Her hands trembled as she brushed a tear from her cheek. The memory of his words replayed in her mind. "She is not trash. She is under my protection," she whispered to herself, almost in prayer. "Please, don't let him fall because of me." The days after the fight grew heavy with silence. The alien mother watched Daniel move about the cabin as if nothing had changed, chopping wood, repairing tools, setting snares in the forest. But for her, everything had changed. She could not forget the way he had stood against the men, how his fists had struck, how he had declared she was not trash. No one had ever done that for her. The memory warmed her heart and filled it with fear. Each night she sat by the fire while her son slept, her thoughts spinning. If the men came back with more, could Daniel protect them? What if he was injured? What if he died? She imagined his blood on the ground, his body still, and her child crying over him, her chest clenched until she could hardly breathe. One evening the storm clouds rolled in, gray and angry. The cabin grew colder, the fire small against the howling wind outside. Food was running low. The snares had caught little. The boy asked softly, "Mama, will there be dinner?" She forced a smile. "Yes, little one," though her heart was heavy. Later, when the boy slept, she knelt before Daniel at the table, her hands trembling. "I have nothing to give," she whispered, her eyes lowered. "I came here with only my shame and my son. You feed us, clothe us, protect us. I cannot repay it, but I can give myself to you. If that is what you want, I will not refuse." Her voice cracked, but she forced herself to keep speaking. "Take me as your servant, your slave, your bed, anything you wish. At least then I will not feel like a burden." Tears stung her eyes, but she kept her head bowed, waiting for his command, waiting for him to finally reveal the price of his kindness. For a long, tense moment, Daniel said nothing. The fire crackled, the storm pounded against the walls, then his chair scraped back and he stood, towering over her. Her whole body trembled, expecting anger or demand, but his voice thundered, sharp and full of fire. "Don't insult yourself like this." She flinched, shocked, daring to lift her head. Daniel's eyes burned, not with hunger, but with fury. "I didn't save you to own you. I didn't feed you to buy you. I didn't fight for you because you were a debt." He stepped closer, his voice firm, every word a strike against her chains. "You are worth more than you believe. More than they told you. More than you can even see right now." Her lips trembled, her tears spilling freely. "But I was sold," she whispered. "I begged like an animal, I gave myself away for scraps. That is all I am worth." Daniel knelt before her suddenly, his voice low but fierce. "You are a mother who kept her child alive when the world tried to kill him. You are stronger than anyone who mocked you. And as long as you are under this roof, no one will call you worthless again, not even you." Her breath broke into sobs, her whole body shaking. The words pierced her soul, tearing apart years of cruel lies. She had survived so long believing she was nothing, only to hear, finally, that she was something, someone. She covered her face with her hands, her tears hot and endless. Daniel did not touch her, but his voice stayed steady. "You don't owe me your body. You don't owe me silence. You don't owe me anything." He paused, his eyes softening. "The only thing I ask is that you let yourself live." The mother collapsed forward, her forehead resting against the floor. The storm roared outside, but inside the cabin her own storm broke. For the first time in years, she cried not from fear, but from release. Her son stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly but did not wake. She wept until her body was weak, until her heart felt lighter. Later, when she could finally breathe again, she looked up at Daniel through tear-streaked eyes. Her voice was raw, trembling. "Why? Why do you care so much?" Daniel's gaze flickered, shadows passing over his face. At last he whispered, "Because once, I lost someone who believed they were worthless. I will never let that happen again." He stood then, his face unreadable, turning back to the fire. The mother's chest ached, not just with sorrow, but with something new. Something like hope, something like belonging. That night, she lay beside her child, her eyes swollen from tears. Her heart was still afraid, still uncertain, but a spark burned inside her now. A spark that whispered maybe she was more than what the world had said. Maybe this human truly saw her as something else, something greater. But as she drifted into sleep, the fear returned. If others came again, if Daniel bled for her, if his kindness broke under the weight of the world, could she bear it? Her hand clutched her son tightly, her other hand pressed to her chest. The breaking point had come. And in that fragile moment between despair and hope, she realized, if Daniel fell, she would shatter with him. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than thunder. The alien mother moved quietly around the cabin, her son clinging to her skirt. She no longer knew what to say to Daniel, not after his words. He had torn apart the chains in her mind, but in their place he had left something terrifying. Hope. And hope was more dangerous than chains because if it broke, she would not survive it. For a few days, the cabin felt calm, almost peaceful. Her son laughed more, chasing the little wooden toy Daniel had carved years ago. Sometimes Daniel even smiled faintly when he watched the boy play, though his eyes always carried shadows of loss. The mother cooked, cleaned, and mended what she could, though Daniel never asked her to. She wanted to do something, anything that proved she belonged. But deep inside, her fear never left, and then the shadows returned. It happened at dusk, as the sun dipped behind the forest. The sound of many footsteps echoed through the trees. The mother froze, her blood turning cold. Daniel stepped outside, his hand already resting on his weapon. From the darkness, 5 alien men emerged, the same ones as before, but now with more at their side. Their leader sneered. "We warned, you human. No one protects trash without paying the price." The mother clutched her son tightly, pulling him back into the cabin. Her heart hammered so hard she could barely breathe. She wanted to beg Daniel not to fight, not to bleed for her. But when she opened her mouth, no words came, only silent tears. Daniel's voice cut through the night, steady and strong. "This is your last chance. Leave." The men laughed cruelly, drawing blades and clubs. "You'll die for her?" One spat. "For a slave who sold herself? She's nothing." The mother's whole body shook, the shame crushing her. But then Daniel's voice thundered, louder than the storm had been. "She is mine to protect. She is worth more than all of you together." The men roared and charged. The mother screamed, pressing her child against her chest as chaos exploded outside. Daniel met them head-on, his blade flashing in the firelight, his fists striking with brutal precision. One man fell with a cry, clutching his arm. Another stumbled back as Daniel's elbow struck his face, but they were many, and Daniel was only one. Blood streaked his cheek, his breath grew harsh, yet still he fought. Every strike was not for himself, but for her, for the boy, for the fragile peace he had promised. Inside the cabin, the mother's tears fell hot and fast. Her child whimpered, "Mama, he'll die." Her chest ached as she whispered, "No, he can't. He mustn't." She wanted to run to help, but fear chained her legs. Then she remembered Daniel's words, "You are stronger than you believe." Her body trembled, but slowly she stood, placing her child under the table. "Stay hidden." "Don't come out," she whispered, kissing his forehead. She stepped outside into the chaos, her voice breaking. Stop this." The men laughed at her, their eyes cruel. "See, even now she begs." Daniel staggered, blood on his arm, but he did not fall. The mother's fear broke into fire, her voice ringing clear. "No more. I am not trash. I am not nothing." Her words shocked even herself, but they carried the weight of her pain, her survival, her love for her child. The men hesitated, stunned by her sudden defiance. Daniel seized the moment, striking hard, sending 2 sprawling into the dirt. The others cursed, backing away, realizing the fight was no longer theirs to win. Their leader spat, his eyes burning with hate. "This isn't over, human. You and your pet will pay." But when he met the mother's gaze, her eyes fierce for the first time, he faltered. He turned and fled with the others into the trees, their threats fading into the night. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the ragged sound of Daniel's breathing. He wiped the blood from his face, his shoulders heavy. The mother rushed to him, her hands trembling. "You're hurt," she whispered. He shook his head. "I've been hurt before. What matters is that you're safe." Her tears spilled again, but this time they were different, hot with relief, with something deeper. She fell to her knees before him, clutching his bloodied hand. Her voice broke as she whispered, "I was sold as nothing, but you gave me everything. You gave my child life. You gave me dignity, and you gave us a home." She looked up at him, her eyes shining through her tears. "If you will have me, I will stay. Not as your property, not as your burden, but as your partner." Daniel froze, his eyes searching hers. Slowly, his hand tightened around hers, rough but gentle. "Then stay," he said quietly. "As family." Behind them, the child crawled, out from under the table, his small hands clutching both of theirs. He looked up at Daniel with wide eyes, then at his mother. "Does this mean we are safe now?" he asked softly. The mother kissed his head, whispering, "Yes, my little one. Safe," Daniel's steady voice added, "as long as I breathe." The firelight flickered across their faces, a broken mother, a lost child, and a human who had chosen love instead of chains. In that moment, they were no longer slave, rescuer, and orphan. They were something new, something whole, a family. And for the first time in years, the mother let herself believe it, truly believe it.